Well, as Michelle said, I'm the founder and executive director of Embrace Communities, and I wanted to start us off with one of my favorite all-time quotes from Howard Thurman, who says, "Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, and go do it, because what the world needs is people who have come alive." And the story I'm going to tell you is a story of a gentleman named Rudy Green. And I actually met Rudy in 2008. And Rudy was in a homeless shelter at the time. And I was running what had grown out of an encounter with a woman who had been experiencing homelessness. And she had this dream of helping other individuals who are transitioning out of homeless shelters, and she wanted to help them. And so we started what became the largest furniture bank on the Eastern Seaboard. But at the time, we were just this little operation, and we needed muscle. So they were sending over men from this male healing place program, and Rudy was one of them. And I was captivated by those eyes and his smile, and he had such a positive attitude. And so when I got an AmeriCorps grant in 2009, I hired Rudy and 12 of his mates from the homeless shelter to be AmeriCorps members. And one of the first things that we did was we invited them to draw a picture. We asked this question: if you could do anything to make Richmond a better place, what would you do? And Rudy drew this picture, and it was of him mentoring young people. And I remember looking at this picture and I was like, okay, how do I help him live this dream? Because I work with homeless individuals, adults. How is that ever gonna really happen? But I didn't want to discourage him. I put his picture on my wall, and for years I thought about Rudy's dream. And Rudy stuck with us through the furniture bank, and then we switched to doing asset-based community development in 2008. And Rudy was one of my first team members in a neighborhood called Hillside Court. And he helped a lot of other people live their dreams, but Rudy was always in the background, always helping other people. And then in 2012, we moved to a new neighborhood, the Brooklyn Park corridor. And Rudy was still with me, and I invited Rudy to do a listening project, go out, and this is a new neighborhood for us. And I said, just go out and listen to people and ask the question, if they could do anything, what would they do to strengthen their community? And so Rudy was walking the streets, and he went to the corner of Haynes Avenue and Brooklyn Park Boulevard, and we had moved our offices into this commercial corridor that was about 50% vacant at the time. And there were two young adult men on this street corner, and they were doing some business, some illegal business, because that was the bus stop for the high school students. And so as the students were getting off the bus, these young men were dealing drugs, and Rudy went up to them and said, "What's it gonna take to get you off my corner? Because I claim this corner and I don't think you should be here." And they said, "Man, you got a job? If you give me a job, I'll move off this corner." And so Rudy came back to the office, and he said to all of us, he said, "You know what, this community, what my dream is to give young people an opportunity that's different than the one I had." Because Rudy had taken that path, and he had lost 20 years of his life to substance abuse. And it really, really moved our whole team to hear him say that. And so it was time for Rudy to live his dream, and it grew out of his pain. And in that pain of years of addiction, he found his passion. And through this opportunity, he discovered his purpose. And I just love this quote from Elijah Cummings. And I always think of Rudy every time I see it. And so Rudy went out, and we decided we're going to shift. Everybody was entertaining young people. All the programs were attracting them, and they were trying to be flashy and cool. And Rudy said, you know, I just want to listen to some kids. I just want to understand, if they could do anything, what would they do to make Brooklyn Park better? And so he gathered these 5 young men, and they called themselves um, men of all seasons. And so they decided that, so he listened to him, they wanted two things. One, they wanted a safe place where they could just do whatever they wanted to do that was safe. That was important. Safe opportunities, and they wanted jobs. And so they started doing lawn care. They started doing just odds and ends things, moving projects and stuff. But we ran into all kinds of challenges around transportation because most of the economic opportunities weren't in our neighborhood. And so we, in 2014, we started talking to the local businesses up and down our corridor because we have a commercial corridor. And we said, would you create economic opportunities for young people? We'll raise the money. Will you mentor them? And so we had a few takers, 3 or 4 businesses, created internships, and that was nice, but it wasn't scalable. We knew that we wanted to see more young people involved. And so about that time, I went to Broadway United Methodist Church and I met Mike Mather, and who was on the call last week, and saw what they were doing with the Roving Listeners Project. And so I came back to Richmond and I told Rudy about it. And I said, do you think we can pull something off like that here? Instead of having our AmeriCorps members do the listening, could we train young people to do listening projects here in Richmond? And he was all over that, thought that was a fabulous idea. And so in 2014, we started the program. And then by 2015, we had 21 young people doing listening projects in 5 different neighborhoods. And the video I want to share with you, it grew out of one of those 5 neighborhoods and was one of the first to actually do this kind of listening project. So hopefully, if y'all can't hear the sound, Michelle or Dee wave at me, but hopefully it's still.
Our story begins here in the Broadwater neighborhood in the summer of 2015. A team from Chester United Methodist Church partnered with the neighborhood youth to discover the dreams of the residents through a dream catcher project. Some of our young dream catchers were attracted to the project by the offer of free food, but it was the idea of making their neighborhood a better place that ultimately kept them coming back. When asked why they got involved, Arki shared, "It's boring around here, and I like that I can make a positive change." Charnice said, "I like the fact that they actually wanted me to do it. They could have had anyone, but they wanted us to do it." Through interviews and community-wide conversations, the team discovered that what the neighbors cared most about were the children and providing positive activities for them. While adults wanted to make this dream a reality, the demands of family and work life kept many from getting involved. The team became discouraged. It appeared as though the neighborhood dreams would go unfulfilled. Then one of the youth asked a powerful question: "Why do we need the adults to lead the action teams? Why can't we do it ourselves?" That question changed everything. Each of our young leaders became the heroes they were looking for. Our young leaders discovered they have a unique gift to give. Arki is a great role model. Sam brings the gift of enthusiasm and laughter. Taisha discovered teaching gifts. And Charnice brings organizational skills. All of the youth will tell you that they have gained confidence and are more willing to talk to their neighbors. They all also discovered that they are in fact leaders. Arki shared, "I'm good at motivating people to do better." Charnice said, "I was always the person to help lead, but I've taken it further and have become a leader." In addition to the changes in the young leaders, there are signs of changes happening in the neighborhood. Arki shared, "I see people talking more, coming together more. It's good to see the little kids coming to the clubhouse and laughing." One by one, great neighbors of all ages are catching the vision. Our young heroes are still dreaming. Charnice shared, "I want the next generation to be able to do what we are doing. It's fun, it gives you something to do, and it brings people together. I want to see all of the dreams of the neighbors come true."
So that was in 2016. And those young people really transformed the way we were thinking about the work of the youth. At that point, we had been doing like an 8-week summer listening project, thinking of it like an internship opportunity. And the Broadwater kids actually ended up starting 4 action teams. They started serious about science. They started doing special events. Arki started a teen movie night where the kids could all come together and pick a movie. And then they started doing mentoring, one-on-one mentoring between teenagers and younger kids. And they really showed us that it was deeper than employment, that what they were looking for was really an opportunity to lead. And that's when we really started making that shift from just employing to empowering. And so in 2017, we expanded the work to a year-long program we called Empowered Youth Corps. And Rudy was right there with kids at that point, and it was really fun to see them really get excited about changing their neighborhoods. And then in 2018, we started engaging local high schools in oral listening projects, interviewing senior adults and really talking about schools and school integration, which is a huge issue in Richmond, Virginia. And back in 2015, there was a young man named Joel, and Joel asked me a really powerful question. He said, "Miss Wendy, is my school a community?" And I said, "Well, yeah, Joel, your school's a community." And he said, "Well, then why aren't we doing this at my school? Because my school is way scarier than my neighborhood." And he really, really shook me up. I'd never really thought about what this process would look like in a school. But then in 2018, I developed a curriculum called Youth Power Shift, and I started training youth development professionals from all across our city and ABCD and taking this at the neighborhood level. And I shared Joelle's question and challenged the group and said, you know, I don't know what this looks like in a school, but maybe, you know, somebody here would be brave enough to give it a shot. And so at that time, Jennifer Hilliard was a CIS, Communities in Schools site coordinator. And CIS, they place like social work type folks and educators in schools to help build a bridge between schools and neighborhood and communities. And she loved this idea, and she went to her high school and they took the project into the high school level through a group they called Embrace Meadowbrook. And the young people, Meadowbrook High School is a radically diverse community, but the kids said that people really are siloed, that the Spanish speaking community doesn't speak to the African American community, and they don't speak to the white community. It's just this very segmented group. And so they wanted their project to focus on the most vulnerable students in their school. So they focused on the English language learners and really gained some really powerful insights to how those kids who are segregated because of the language barrier feel completely cut out of the whole culture of the school. And so they've started a mentoring program for students. They've started, and the school was so impressed with what they're doing, they've started a student leadership program. But this is a brand new little story, and we're actually putting together a video about it right now. I've been interviewing these students, and it's really amazing what they're learning about each other and their power to bring voice into that situation. So the administration or Communities in Schools was contacted us, and we said, we love what you've done with Jennifer. Can you train all 9 of our site coordinators in this asset-based thing? And because we really want to see that happen across our network. And so we developed a curriculum called Power Shift for Educators to bring this into a school-based setting. And I did that training in the fall of 2019 for all CIS coordinators. And that training was co-sponsored by Chesterfield County Public Schools, and they sent some of their family and student engagement team, as well as some surrounding school systems sent their administrators. And the county of Chesterfield, they sent some of their folks to the training, and out of this came a multi-sector project to bring both ABCD to the schools, but then the county is going to help facilitate that happening in neighborhoods so that we can marry the two together. And so one of the young men, Leo, is putting together a team from Meadowbrook to then take it to the neighborhood level. And Cheryl, my fellow Virginian on the call, is going to be a part of that project as an adult, bringing those pieces together and linking those to some of our local assets in community development as well as youth development. So I tell you this story because I want to encourage you to really appreciate the small, little, tiny moves. I've heard a lot of people on the call talking about how do we advocate, how do we reach those big systems, how do we get government, to think this way, how do we get, school systems and these big things that honestly to me feel overwhelming. But what I've watched in this one story is it was little tiny moves. Rudy with 5 kids who sat and listened deeply to them for 2 years, and little small groups of 5 or 6 to 10 kids and adults here and there. And so I wanted to, I'll come back to that one, forgot what order I put this in. I wanted to share this quote from Jody Krutzman, who at the ABCD Festival said, "The defense of the small is at the core of our challenge for the future." And I think just summing it up as being defenders of the small and celebrating that. And I wanted to also share with you some of the outcomes. So one of the really cool outcomes from engaging young people has been that funders who cannot understand asset-based community development and who will not invest in 5-year processes get really excited about college and career readiness for young people. I get really excited about the long-term impact in the community that these kids are having. But we developed a logic model that really tried to help those funders that really are interested in that individual betterment side for the young person. And so we really focus on the competencies that our young people are gaining, whether it's, communication skills, public speaking, that one-on-one interviewing and how it's impacting them, project planning and team building, but also the confidence that we watch in them. And there was one little boy, Trayshawn, and the first day I met him, he just looked at his feet the whole time. I'm like, he'd say, "Hi, I'm Trayshawn," and he would say nothing. And within a year, he was on a stage doing a presentation to a bunch of adults about what he learned about his neighborhood and how amazing his experience was. So that kind of confidence, when I was reading what you guys were posting in the chat about what you would say to your younger self and all those praises that you would heap on that young version of you, I watch kids get a lot of that through this process. They have caring adults and peers that are just telling them how great they are. I also have seen a lot of young people gain a lot of clarity about how their gifts can be an asset, gifts that they didn't even know they had. Teaching gifts, like watching the young lady that led the Serious About Science group. She'd never thought of herself as a teacher, and now she wants to become a school teacher. Leah wants to be an advocate for immigrants across our city. Just really some really neat insights. And then, of course, that civic mindedness, engaging young people in this process of thinking about their civic responsibility when they're 16, 17, we believe it'll carry through to when they're 40 and 50 and 60. And they're really thinking about the systems and who holds the power in these communities and how they can amplify the voices, their own as well as their peers. So my last slide that I wanted to share is actually a quote from my new friend Leo at the Meadowbrook Embrace team, who said, I'm reading all of his interview and it's so amazing. So I hope I get a chance. I'll share the video with you guys when it's all done editing. But personally, he said, personally, the listening project was life-changing. because now I carry the weight of the ELL community and how they feel, and that's English language learners. How can I make them not feel that way? They gave me a reason to push forward, to be a better person in general. And then in his interview, I think he gave all of us some really great advice when he said, I don't want you to make a slideshow. I don't want you to make points. I don't want you to follow some instruction. I want you to have a heart-to-heart conversation. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that is going to get to these kids is when they see pure, raw emotion. If you are not genuine, they will shut you out. So with that, I will stop the sharing. And did I do it in 20?